seen from up close how much of an impact this fund has in our community. Tonight, I have the privilege of being your guide for our program. To begin, ladies and gentlemen, please rise for the arrival of her honor, the Honorable Anita R. Neville, Lieutenant Governor of Manitoba, who will bring greetings. Please be seated. Good evening, everyone. It's never nice to be here among so many old friends. A pleasure to join you all in this beautiful location to celebrate philanthropy in our community. As our thoughts turn to community tonight, we acknowledge that this city is in the heart of Treaty 1 land and in the heartland of the Red River Métis. And our province is the ancestral and present-day home of the Anishinaabe, the Cree, the Dakota, the Dene, the Inuit, and the Métis peoples. Here in Manitoba, we're committed to understanding, to learning from the past, to advance healing and reconciliation, and to building a healthier community for everybody. It's a well-known truth in international social and economic development that improving conditions for women also improves outcomes for children and ultimately for entire societies. That surely is true at the provincial and local levels as well. The support provided by the Women's Endowment Fund of the Jewish Foundation of Manitoba has touched the lives of women and girls across Manitoba. And I had an instant yesterday as I was visiting the House of Peace, walking into a room and Sister Leslie saying to me, and I was so proud, this was funded by the Women's Endowment Fund of the Jewish Foundation. It really was quite a lovely feeling. By supporting education, counseling, employment, training, and other programs, the generosity of so many of you has helped women and families to gain security, independence, and opportunity, and economic advancement, and really true joy for many. And that's why the raison d'etre of a fund like this, the Women's Endowment Fund, has no doubt an important impact. This fund has brought women together for 30 years to dedicate themselves to community. I could hardly believe it was 30 years. For those who established and built and supported the Women's Endowment Fund, it has provided an opportunity to deepen their understanding of and love for this province and for all its people. The park where we're gathering has been transformed over the last decades through a combination of public funding and private philanthropy. And as we see on virtually every day of the year, it brings more joy to more people than ever before. The power of philanthropy is so important, and that's why you're all here tonight. By coming together with others who share a similar passion, we can all be part of a great and positive transformation. As you set your goals for the future for the Women's Endowment Fund, you too can multiply your positive impact across Winnipeg and across Manitoba. So my very sincerest congratulations on this 30th anniversary, and thank you all for 30 decades of service to our province. Thank you again. Merci, Mendish, and Shalom.
Thank you to her honor. It's now my pleasure to call up our next two speakers, Karen Lazarick and Chloe McComb, who will be sharing the story of how the Women's Endowment Fund started and how it has evolved. Karen is a committed volunteer who has served on the board of the Jewish Foundation of Manitoba and multiple committees. She is one of the founders of the Women's Endowment Fund, a builder, and she is proud to have her name attached to the first fund Women's Endowment Fund established in 1994. Chloe, another committed volunteer, is a previous chair of the Women's Endowment Fund Grants Committee. I had the pleasure of serving on that committee at that time. And Chloe currently sits on the JFM Board of Directors. She also became a builder in 2013. Please welcome Karen Lazarick and Chloe McComb.
Before I begin, I want to take a moment to thank the Jewish Foundation for inviting me to speak here tonight with my daughter-in-law, Chloe. As you can imagine, as a mother and a mother-in-law, this is quite a thrill. And it's so interesting because we came here independently of one another, drawn to this organization. It just shows you how compelling the Women's Endowment is, and that it traverses decades of women and generations. So, thank you. And Leah, thank you for the lovely welcoming, and it's truly heartening to see such a vibrant community of supporters come together to celebrate our shared commitment to women's philanthropy. As we mark the 30th anniversary of the Women's Endowment Fund, I'm reminded of the incredible journey we've embarked upon. Back in 1994, when we first conceived the idea of the Women's Endowment Fund, we were driven by the desire to make a difference. Inspired by the words of former Winnipegger Susan Schneider, editor of Lilith magazine, we were challenged to confront the historical lack of collective support among women for women's causes. And so, fueled by this bold idea, we set out to reshape the philanthropic landscape in Manitoba. We were a diverse group of volunteers drawn from various organizations, united by a common goal: to create a space where women could make their own philanthropic choices. And at that time, such initiatives were scarce in North America. And though it wasn't exactly a Gloria Steinem bra-burning moment, it was unprecedented, given the prevailing mindset that often underestimated our power and freedom. And we pressed forward with vigor. With the support of the Jewish Foundation, we paved a pathway to independence, establishing a Women's Endowment Fund, driven entirely by women and for women. However, to kickstart the fund, we faced the daunting task of raising $5,000. And this seemed insurmountable. Unbelievable but true, especially considering that many of us were not accustomed to making the major charitable donations within our families. But against all odds, we rallied together with an initial donation requirement of $100 from each of the 50 founding women. We not only met, but exceeded our target, gathering the support of 148 women and raising $21,000 to launch our endowment. And it was a spectacular start. From there, the momentum grew, and our efforts to promote the fund, encourage annual giving, and solicit estate gifts were met with creativity and determination. It took time for the concept of building an endowment to gain traction, but we persisted, buoyed by the unwavering support of the foundation and our growing community of women. Today, as we reflect on our journey, we see the impact of our collective efforts. The Women's Endowment Fund has provided support to women from all walks of life and championed women's issues across this province. It symbolizes a shift in mindset and a departure from the status quo. And so as we look to the future, let us remember that the Women's Endowment Fund is inclusive of all women, While it may have been initiated by a group of Jewish women, its scope knows no bounds. It is a place for all women who seek to give back to their community and uplift the lives of women and children. And to those of you who wonder if a fund dedicated to women is still relevant, I have to say that it is, it matters, it always will. For it represents not just the growth of a fund, but the promise of change. It's a testament to the power of collective action and a beacon of hope for future generations of women in Manitoba. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. It was very interesting to hear about the start of the WAC. It's an honor to speak alongside my mother-in-law this evening as we commemorate the 30th anniversary of the Women's Endowment Fund. While Karen and many of you have been supporters of the Women's Endowment Fund for its entirety, my involvement began later. A decade ago, I joined the Women's Endowment Fund Grants Committee, and since then, I've spent time as its chair and now as a member of the JFM Board of Directors. Entering this community of female philanthropists has been incredibly inspiring, witnessing the remarkable growth and impact achieved. You may ask, has the Women's Endowment Fund succeeded in the way it was envisioned? The answer is yes. In addition to our 30th anniversary, we have reached another milestone. I'm pleased to announce that your efforts have provided over $1 million in grants to programs that help women and girls in our province since the inception of the Women's Endowment Fund. From enhancing healthcare access to supporting low-income single mothers, renovating residential homes for women with intellectual disabilities, and countless other causes, each grant signifies our unwavering commitment to uplifting and empowering women in every aspect of their lives. Shortly, you'll hear from 3 of those grant recipients who will no doubt provide further insight into the impact of your support. Having sat on the WEF Grants Committee for many years, I've seen firsthand the persistent need. As grant applications come in each year, it reaffirms that while we've done such great work, there's still more to accomplish. In recent years, when we spoke to different organizations, we discovered a common challenge: securing funding for ongoing initiatives. Small nonprofits with very specific needs were not able to apply for funding because WEF grants, like many other granting agencies, did not provide grants to the same program more than once. This meant that they were putting considerable effort into finding ways to receive grants for their core mission and initiatives, the most important work that they do. I'm happy to share that we've undergone a significant change in our granting criteria to ensure that support remains available for those who need it. This change reflects our commitment to adapt and evolve with the needs of our community. By allowing organizations to apply for grants for ongoing programs, we ensure that organizations in Manitoba supporting women and girls always have a place to go. As I stand here tonight, I'm reminded of the importance of philanthropy, not only in my own life, but also in my children's lives. Just as my mother-in-law, who spoke before me, my daughter and boys are learning the value of giving back through our conversations about tzedakah. As my children and Karen's grandchildren get older, I'm sure they'll come to appreciate the true impact and importance of support systems for the community, like the Women's Endowment Fund. I'm confident that this legacy of giving will endure for generations. In closing, I extend my deepest gratitude to all our supporters, donors, and partners who have championed the Women's Endowment Fund for 3 decades. Your unwavering dedication has been the cornerstone of our success, and together we'll continue to shape the next chapter of the Women's Endowment Fund.
Thank you both. The growth of the Women's Endowment Fund is incredible. Next, I'd like to call up a Jewish Foundation Manitoba board member and the current chair of the WEF Grants Committee, Dr. Sharon Gozer-Triggs.
Hello, everyone. Welcome. Thus far this evening, we've talked about the vision for and development of the Women's Endowment Fund, as well as its evolution over the years, for the purpose of ensuring that it has maximum impact on women in our province through organizations that support girls and women in need. My role this evening is to place the spotlight on the results that it's had to date, so that all of us in attendance recognize its impact and can take pride in what we have accomplished together. Karen mentioned that at its inception, the fund had just over $21,000 in capital contributed to it. That figure has ballooned to over $2.2 million in 3 decades, speaking volumes about the growth of the fund and its relevance. The $1,000 distributed in grants that initial year was the first step on a ladder that has now reached a sum of over $101,000 in yearly distribution. To put this into even greater perspective, consider that the Women's Endowment Fund has grown so exponentially, such that there are times now that we granted single requests in the amount of $35,000. All of this to say that our collective dedication to this fund has permitted us to offer grants that individually are greater than the entire fund was when it was dreamed of and created by women with insight and awareness of the power of women to make a difference. What an achievement. Well, the numbers speak for themselves, and we clearly have so much to take pride in. We are all aware of the needs of women from all walks of life, and that they persist, continue to grow, and that we have a shared responsibility to be there to support and lift them when we are called upon. To this end, a new goal has been set for the Women's Endowment Fund. That goal is to reach $3 million. From what we've seen already, I feel optimistic that we will do so. In a moment, you will hear personal impact stories from 3 organizations that have benefited from grants received from our endowment fund. These 3 organizations represent a group of over 100 grant recipients. Though we're featuring 3 organizations due to time limitations, I encourage you all to take a few moments prior to the end of the evening to look at the display by the entrance. It lists each of our recipient organizations that advocate for the needs of women and help create meaningful change in their lives. You will be impressed by the broad and diverse range of organizations, facilities, and programs not only in Winnipeg but throughout Manitoba that we have embraced. As many of you know, I am the daughter of Holocaust survivors, and we are in the midst of Holocaust Remembrance Week in Winnipeg. As a woman living in the current zeitgeist of increasing anti-Semitism and in a state where women worldwide and positions of high power did not rise and stand up on behalf of the women targeted in the October 7th massacre in Israel, I take great pride in the fact that we, the Women's Endowment Fund and the Jewish Foundation of Manitoba, strive to be inclusive, sensitive, and responsive to women from every walk of life who require our support. In my opinion, with silence comes isolation, and we are not silent. For me, one way to reduce this isolation of others is to take action. The Women's Endowment Fund does exactly that. It's now a pleasure to introduce our 3 guests. Katie Hall-Hirsch joins us from the Health Sciences Center Foundation. She will speak about the grant provided to the foundation that helps ensure equitable care for all women in Manitoba who require emergency gynecological surgery. Second, Tessa Blakey-Whitecloud comes to us from Salome Mission, which received a grant to provide new underwear, bras, linens, and feminine hygiene products to women who utilize this facility. These are basic items that directly affect women's health and dignity. Can you imagine not having these essentials? And finally, we'll hear from Becky Chiswick, who joins us from the Women's Sector Creative Living Center. Quite recently, the Endowment Fund provided them with a grant to facilitate CPR and first aid courses that are designed specifically for older women who may require adaptations to perform these vital interventions. Please join me in welcoming Katie Hall-Hirsch, Tessa Blakey-Whitecloud, and Becky Chiswick.
Thank you, Sharon. Good evening. It is with immense pleasure and gratitude that I stand before you tonight, representing the Health Sciences Center Foundation, as we gather to celebrate this remarkable night, the 30th anniversary of the Women's Endowment Fund of the Jewish Foundation of Manitoba. I am truly honored to be here to celebrate with all of you. As Sharon mentioned, I've been a member of the Board of Directors for the Health Sciences Center Foundation for the past 5 years. And I can say with certainty that my most meaningful experience in that role has been to champion a campaign for the purchase of new state-of-the-art technology and equipment to use in emergency laparoscopic surgeries at the Women's Hospital. In the context of some of our much larger campaigns, this was on the smaller side at 120,000. But in my mind, at least, it had immense importance because it was focused solely on bettering the delivery of women's health care in our province. And women in Manitoba were certainly not unique in this regard, but historically, this has been an area that has been underfunded and under-resourced. With this campaign, however, we've had a resounding positive level of support from our community, and some of the greatest levels of support and impact came from the women in this room. But as we're hearing here this evening, it is just a small part of what has been the overall phenomenal philanthropic leadership that has been demonstrated by the Women's Endowment Fund throughout its history. This fund embodies the power of collective action and the spirit of empowering women. Looking around the room here tonight, it is obvious your support for the women of Manitoba is palpable. Through your generosity, the Women's Endowment Fund has channeled resources towards vital initiatives that help improve the lives of women and girls in Manitoba. Your support, quite simply, changes lives. And in the case of the Health Sciences Center, your support actually saves lives. And here's how. As I mentioned, in 2022, the HSE Foundation launched a campaign to fund and upgrade surgical equipment to be used in emergency laparoscopic surgeries for gynecological procedures. And this was to have them be available any time of day or night, without having to bump any other scheduled procedures. Specifically, the software and the technology that we have purchased was to make the laparoscopic surgeries available around the clock. And that differs from conventional open surgery, which requires large incisions. Laparoscopic surgery involves small cuts and the insertion of small scopes and instruments. Surgeons can then see their work on the high-definition monitors. And what that means is that there is greater patient outcomes, there's less risk, there's less pain, and there's shorter recovery times. All good things. Here's just one example of where this equipment has already been put into use. Recently, HSE gynecologist Dr. Margaret Burnett shared the story of a patient who was pregnant, 7 weeks pregnant, and after experiencing some worrisome bleeding, made her way to the HSE. Sadly, an emergency ultrasound revealed that she had a tubal pregnancy, which meant that the fertilized egg had implanted itself in one of her fallopian tubes instead of her uterus. This condition is dire, as it meant that at any point, a rupture can cause life-threatening internal bleeding. Imagine the shock and the sadness and learning that your pregnancy is not viable. And now later on, the worry when you're now faced with the news that your own life is in grave danger. Thanks to all of you and our other generous donors, HSE's new laparoscopic equipment was up and running. Dr. Burnett was able to perform an emergency life-saving procedure. That's right, the patient's life was saved. That's not to minimize the fact of the tragedy of the loss of her pregnancy, but her life was saved. And not only was it saved, she was able to go home the very next day to recover in the comfort of her home with her loved ones. This is the perfect example of the power of innovative, best-in-class care, as it not only provided an opportunity for the best medical care, but also holistically thinking the best patient-centered care. Now, when I first joined the HSE Foundation Board 5 years ago, it quickly became clear to me that for Manitobans to have the best healthcare available, world-class healthcare, we all needed to step forward and to support important health initiatives at HSC, which is Manitoba's hospital. Dr. Burnett's patient story is just one example of the exceptional care that is being delivered at HSC every single day. And it's an example of the power of philanthropy and strong partnerships. We are seeing important evidence of this throughout our work, especially through HSC's ongoing generational campaign, Operation Excellence, which I must add has also been supported by the Jewish Foundation of Manitoba. Operation Excellence is expanding the diagnostic and surgical capacity for today and for the long term at HSC. It is an initiative that will help address the diagnostic and surgical backlog, it will reduce wait times, and help HC deliver the most advanced diagnostic services and minimally invasive surgery to all Manitobans. This campaign embodies the Foundation's mission, which is to deliver tomorrow's healthcare today. It's clear tonight that we share a passion for excellence and innovation in healthcare. And I am pleased to share that we are well on our way through Operation Excellence to having just that. In closing, I again want to thank all of you and express my heartfelt gratitude to the Jewish Foundation of Manitoba and specifically the Women's Endowment Fund for your absolute unwavering level of support and leadership. Your generosity is not only empowering women across our province, but it's paving the way for a more equitable and healthy future. With your dedication and compassion, we are helping to ensure that Manitobans get the health care that they need and deserve. The impact of the Women's Endowment Fund in Manitoba is profound, and I am very excited to see what you will accomplish in the next 30 years and beyond. Thank you, and mazel tov.
Good evening. My name is Tessa Whitecloud, and I have the privilege of thanking all of you tonight for the contribution that was made to Silo Mission, specifically as mentioned, to support some of those basic necessities that when women who are experiencing homelessness or struggling with inadequate housing or unsafe housing can't in the way that we might take for granted. And when we think about socks and underwear and bras, we also need to think about what they allow. The dignity, the confidence, the capacity of feminine hygiene products to make you feel more comfortable going about your week at least once a month, and the capacity for women who are experiencing homelessness to go for job interviews, to go seek apartments, to change their lives and transform their lives. When we think about these basics, and we do a lot of that at Salem, we offer, of course, meals every single day, we offer a safe place to sleep, we offer the necessities of thanks to clean and new underwear, hardest thing to come by. We made it possible this past winter. But the conversations that come from can I get a tampon can lead to housing, and can lead to employment, can lead to detox and recovery from substance addiction. But the conversations of here's this small thing you need today, here's it being offered with dignity and safety and compassion, thanks to the love of other women in the community through the Women's Endowment Fund, thanks to the generosity of others who know the need for these types of things, can lead to, and I'm going to tell you a story, we call this one Gloria, can lead to someone being asked. So recently, Silo Mission announced a pretty large pivot. We often are thinking about homelessness as an issue that individuals are facing, and that's true. But as a city, one of the core reasons we're seeing more homelessness is because we're facing a housing unit issue as a city. We have 3 social housing units for every 20 low-income people in need. Calgary has 9. We're literally a third of other major cities. So we've announced a pivot into creating social housing units with the right supports that can can support people to thrive and age with dignity if they're seniors, which is a core population we're looking to serve. Households, so they have safety, the ability to reunite with their children and lead in their community. People looking for sober, safe, low-income housing, because that's a huge challenge that we experience in terms of supporting folks coming out of our treatment program and our transitional housing. Youth aging out of CFS care and into homelessness, and people in need of just a small emergency gap of housing. In that pivot, and tomorrow, you'll hear more about this, we have purchased a 33-unit building in Charleswood, and we have been filling it with seniors. And one of those seniors, we got to know better because she needed clean underwear. She was a regular in the drop-in, and she has a lot of energy. So she was really hard to get to have a conversation with because her mental health issues meant that she was going from this place to that place and, did a lot of cleaning, which was great, but really didn't sit down and talk to anybody. But she regularly accessed our clothing room. And when we have clean and new underwear for folks, or socks for folks, the clothing room gets more well utilized than when we just have oversized t-shirts. Of course, in winter it's the busiest, so we're making sure everybody has coats and hats and toques and mitts. But she regularly came and had conversations with our clothing room staff. She regularly came and said, "This is what I need." She regularly came, and she's a senior, so she wasn't after feminine hygiene products, but she was after really good socks. And she came, she connected with that team, and our clothing store at St. Mission is completely run by your donations of old clothes. And people have the opportunity for a dignity of a shopping experience, which for some people, like this woman, Gloria, who've experienced homelessness for a long time, is a bit confusing because she's only used to getting what people give her. And at the store at St. she has the dignity of choosing what she wants. And so we have volunteer positions that are like little fashionistas that support people to do their shopping. And it was the connection of, hey, we just went out and bought more clean underwear. Thanks to the Women's Endowment Fund, Gloria, I know you need that. Do you want to come back downstairs to the clothing room? It was that remembrance for Gloria that led to that connection with that volunteer fashion person, that led to a connection where she finally kind of calmed down enough to say, "Hey, Gloria, what's going on with the housing? Hey, Gloria, what do you need to get housed?" Everything we're doing now at St. Mission over the last 2.5 years, we've been pivoting to become housing focused in all we do. So every space, whether you're in our social enterprises working on employment, whether you're in our medical clinics being a dentist, someone is asking you what's going on with your housing. So in the clothing room, the conversation with Gloria is, what's going on with your housing? Well, I'm on CPP, but I just never really figure out the money. Okay? Or, well, I just don't want to move where I have no friends. All my friends are in shelter. So what was really interesting when we bought the Roblin property was that we moved everybody there from shelter. So people who had a sense of belonging and community with each other got to say, do you guys want to move into permanent housing together? Do you want to go to a place where meals are still provided and there's still supports on the side and there's programming and you can go together? Now, last summer we had an art show and community members got to come as well. And Gloria rocked the karaoke. She was an all-star. And so when we said, Gloria, do you want to move into this housing? It's for predominantly seniors. You can live there as long as you want to. There'll be another clothing room that has things like clean underwear and good socks. They're going to be tall for Gloria. That's what she likes. Do you want to move there? We can even make sure there's karaoke sometimes. Today, I got to visit that site because we're preparing for a Mother's Day art sale tomorrow from 2 to 6, in case you know about that. And I got to see Gloria in her housing, welcoming someone else, another woman to that building who was new to that housing, telling her about the puzzle room, telling her about the meals, telling her about the programs done, telling her that they'd attended and were meeting different community centers in Charleswood together as a group of residents. What Gloria is now offering to others, because you offered her the dignity of feeling clean and confident and respected, is that she's championing their belonging in housing. When I think about the impact of the Women's Endowment Fund, and women knowing what women need, and women knowing that when women's needs are met, that women lift up their whole community. people like Gloria, who often are not noticed that they have so much to offer, are not noticed that they too can be a woman leader in our community. But thanks to something small, something really big has happened for Gloria, and now she gets to champion belonging and crush karaoke in her new permanent housing. At Salem Mission, we are so honored to have the support of the Jewish Foundation of Manitoba, to have the support of the Women's Endowment Fund, to know legacies of 30 years and what's more to come, are recognizing the need of the diverse people that walk through our door. We are seeing a huge amount of refugees accessing services right now at Salem Mission. We are always and continue to see an overrepresentation of Indigenous people because of the intergenerational traumas that they faced accessing our services. And we're starting to see, thanks to more incorporation of programming and sports and art programming, an increasing amount of women accessing our services. Typically, shelters are not known to be a particularly safe space for women, but when women show up and can have those small needs met, hey, do you have a bra for me? I have a job interview. Hey, do you have some pads? It's that time that I feel really awkward. Hey, can I get clean underwear? That capacity to offer dignity, that transforms into the offer of thriving, the offer of self-transformation. And you made that possible. So thank you, as a woman, to women, for women, for changing women's lives every day in Winnipeg.
Please come back down. Hi everyone. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Becky Chiswick. I'm the Executive Director at One Sector Creative Living Center. It's an honor to be here and to represent one of the over 100 organizations that have been receiving the Women's Endowment Fund grants. Thank you to the staff and the board and the volunteers of the Jewish Foundation of Manitoba, and Mazel Tov on 30 years of the Women's Endowment Fund. We've heard a lot from Katie and Tessa about the grants offered through the Women's Endowment Fund and at the Jewish Foundation of Manitoba, and how they have a lasting impact on women in our province. I'm very fortunate to experience the impact in the Jewish community, and more specifically for seniors in the community. In Canada, 68% of senior women live alone. Over 80% of those are senior women that have been widowed or they're living with a partner that requires ongoing care. Losing a spouse is ranked #1 on the stress scale index, with social isolation a very close second. The programs and services that One Sector has been able to offer with the support of the Women's Endowment Fund grants address these concerns directly. You know, when I walked through the door, a committee member from the granting committee said to me, you know, whenever we see the name Baba on a grant, it just hits me in the heart. So I let her in on a little secret that when I started in my role, which was about 8 years ago, I met with Marla. And Marla gave me the advice of, whenever you're writing a grant, use Baba. So I'm very excited and very proud to say that her advice worked, and we were very successful and reaped the benefits. So it was great advice. But when I was asked to highlight the impact of some of these grants, I thought, okay, I write the grants, I receive the grants at One Sector, and we're able to fund the program or the service that we set out to do. But I felt like who best to hear it from than the participants and the members that directly received the personal impact of these grants. So I asked some of them, and here are just a few snippets for you. I
I lost my husband over 40 years ago, and since I've lost 2 children. I live alone, and I don't drive. The programmatic One sector takes me to the cemetery twice a year to visit my husband and children. I've been going for 3 years now, and before that, it had been a long time. Special people do this for an old lady like me, and it means a lot. Another participant said, the intergenerational programs have been my favorite. I live alone, and my children and grandchildren live all over the world. Participating in programs with young kids gets me out of the house, it makes me smile, and it reminds me that I can have fun, even at my age. Another participant said, my husband has been unwell for the last couple of years, and it's hard and very tiring for us to go out like we used to. I found myself getting sad and very lonely. I'm 68 years old, and these programs have helped me with much needed social therapy. The programs have helped my overall health, my mental health, and I met wonderful new friends by attending these programs. So you can kind of feel the meaning in those three people that offered to give me a few words to be able to share with all of you. The Women's Endowment Fund grants have really helped better the lives of the senior women in our community. So thank you to Karen and Chloe and all the women philanthropists that have helped this fund not just start, but grow for the last 3 decades. All of you have had an immense impact in all of these women in some way. Whether, no matter how much, like Karen said, we were hoping to start with $100 from 50 women, right? So the fact that it started larger than that just shows how much we care for each other. And then listening to myself and the others that are here just shows that the impact continues to make a difference in the women in our community, in our province. So to end, I will offer from all the babas, the bobies, the bobbies, the bobbies, the nanas, the nannies, the grandmas, the grammies, the glammies, the mothers, the aunties, the sisters, the daughters. Thank you very much for supporting us, for supporting the senior women. We are incredibly fortunate to have a dedicated fund supporting and enriching the lives of women and girls in our province.
Those were incredible stories. Thank you so much. Thank you all for joining us tonight. It's incredibly heartwarming to see so many like-minded people here celebrating the Women's Endowment Fund together. Your presence here speaks volumes about your commitment to the fund, and we are immensely grateful for that. The Women's Endowment Fund reached its 30-year milestone because of the support of our generous donors. Whether you've been supporting WIF for 30 years or only 1, your contributions have been the cornerstone of our success and have impacted the lives of so many women throughout our province. 30 years ago, we thought that we were at a turning point and envisioned a time when we had wage parity, when women's rights would no longer be a topic of concern, and when women's health would receive the same funding and research as men's health. As we see today, evolution has been slow, and sometimes there can be setbacks. The challenges facing women continue to exist in spite of all of our hopes and efforts, and it is only through continued generosity and dedication that we can continue to meet the needs these challenges create head on. Your ongoing contributions, no matter the size, make a tangible difference in the lives of countless women and girls. The need for support remains as vital as ever. Tonight, I urge you to recommit yourselves to the cause as we strive for our next goal of $3 million. You will be hearing from the Jewish Foundation of Manitoba shortly after this event, and should you wish to make a contribution, we still have matching funds available through our $1 million match, so your gift will be doubled. Let us stand together in solidarity, ensuring the Women's Endowment Fund remains as strong next year as it does today, and as impactful 30 years from now as it was in 1994. As we wrap up, I'd like to thank all of our speakers, our honor, Karen, Chloe, Sharon, Katie, Tessa, and Becky, for joining us tonight and for sharing your stories. And now, please raise your glass to the Women's Endowment Fund, to its founders, builders, and donors, to all it has accomplished and will continue to provide in years to come. L'chaim.